When most people get their first big paycheck, they imagine freedom. They picture a better apartment, a newer car, nicer clothes, maybe finally ordering food without checking the price first. And for a moment, it feels amazing. But then something strange happens. A few months later, they're earning more money than ever before. Yet somehow they still feel broke. The stress is still there. The anxiety is still there. And the bank account still looks disappointing. It's almost like the extra money disappeared. And that's because for most people, it did. This is the lifestyle inflation trap. And the scary part is, almost nobody notices it happening until years later. Because lifestyle inflation doesn't feel dangerous. It feels normal. Imagine this. A guy named Alex gets his first real job after college. He makes $45,000 a year. At first, he's careful with money. He cooks at home, drives an old car, shares an apartment with roommates. Then he gets promoted. Now he's making $70,000. Suddenly, his old lifestyle starts feeling cheap. He upgrades his apartment, starts financing a newer car, buys better clothes, gets more subscriptions, orders delivery more often. Nothing crazy, just small upgrades. And honestly, most people would say he deserves it. After all, what's the point of making more money if your life doesn't improve? But here's where things get interesting. A year later, Alex feels almost exactly the same financially. His income went up, but his financial stress didn't go down. And this happens to millions of people. Not because they're bad with money, but because human psychology quietly changes every time income increases. See, humans are incredibly good at adapting. That's why the phone you were excited about 6 months ago now feels normal. It's why your dream apartment slowly becomes just your apartment. And it's why every financial upgrade eventually stops feeling special. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. But in the world of money, it becomes a dangerous cycle. Because every time your income rises, your expectations rise with it. Your old lifestyle no longer feels satisfying. And the worst part? You don't even notice the upgrades happening. Nobody wakes up one morning and says, "I'm going to trap myself financially today." It happens slowly. A slightly nicer car, a few more subscriptions, a more expensive gym, better vacations, bigger monthly payments. Individually, they seem harmless. But together, they quietly consume every raise you get. This is why some people making $40,000 save more money than people making $150,000. Because income alone does not create wealth. The gap between what you earn and what you spend creates wealth. And lifestyle inflation destroys that gap. Think about it like this. Imagine your income is water flowing into a bucket. Most people believe becoming rich is about pouring more water into the bucket. But if the hole at the bottom keeps getting bigger every year, the bucket never fills. That hole is lifestyle inflation. And modern society makes it worse. Because today, people don't just spend money to survive. They spend money to signal status. A car becomes proof you're successful. A luxury apartment becomes proof you're progressing. Expensive vacations become proof you're living life. Social media amplified this problem dramatically. Now people compare themselves to strangers all day long. Someone buys a Tesla. Suddenly your perfectly good car feels outdated. Someone posts luxury vacations. Now your normal weekend feels boring. Someone upgrades their apartment. Now your home feels smaller. This creates something psychologists call relative deprivation. Humans don't judge wealth absolutely. They judge it comparatively. You could earn more money than 95% of the world and still feel behind, simply because of the people you compare yourself to. And companies understand this perfectly. That's why advertisements rarely sell products. They sell identities. They sell status, confidence, attractiveness, success. The message is always the same. Buy this, and your life improves. And sometimes it does improve temporarily. But temporary pleasure is different from long-term freedom. That's the part most people miss. Lifestyle inflation feels good in the short term because upgrades trigger dopamine. New purchases create excitement. But financial freedom creates peace. And those are very different emotions. One is intense but temporary. The other is quiet but lasting. Unfortunately, modern culture trains people to chase excitement instead of peace. That's why many high-income earners still feel trapped. They earn more, but their lifestyle expands at the exact same speed, which means financially, nothing really changes. This is why someone making $250,000 can still panic over bills, because expenses rise to match income. There's actually a famous idea called Parkinson's Law. It basically says expenses rise to meet income. And once you notice this, you start seeing it everywhere. A person gets a raise, then immediately upgrades their lifestyle. A bigger paycheck becomes bigger payments, not bigger investments, not bigger savings, just bigger obligations. And obligations are dangerous because they remove flexibility. The more expensive your lifestyle becomes, the harder it is to slow down. That's why lifestyle inflation quietly traps people in jobs they hate. At first, they only wanted nicer things, but eventually they need the high salary just to maintain their life. The expensive car payment, the luxury apartment, the private schools, the subscriptions, the vacations. Suddenly, walking away from stress becomes impossible. They didn't buy freedom. They bought financial pressure disguised as success. And this creates one of the biggest ironies in modern life. Many people become less financially free as their income increases, not more. Because true wealth is not about appearances. It's about control. Control over your time. Control over your decisions. Control over your future. And lifestyle inflation slowly steals that control. Now here's the interesting part. The people who quietly build wealth usually look normal. They don't always drive flashy cars. They don't constantly upgrade everything. They don't try to prove success. Instead, they protect the gap between earning and spending, because that gap becomes investments, and investments eventually buy freedom. This is why two people with the exact same salary can end up with completely different lives. One spends every raise. The other invests every raise. 10 years later, the difference becomes massive. One person owns liabilities. The other owns assets. One has higher monthly payments. The other has passive income. One needs to keep working. The other has options. And most of that difference came from small decisions repeated consistently over time. That's what makes lifestyle inflation so dangerous. It doesn't destroy wealth instantly. It destroys wealth invisibly, through tiny upgrades that feel harmless. A more expensive habit here, a bigger payment there. Until one day people look around and wonder, how am I making this much money and still feeling stuck? But lifestyle inflation isn't only about spending more money. It also changes your definition of enough. And that may be the most dangerous part of all. Because when enough constantly moves further away, satisfaction becomes impossible. People think, I'll feel secure once I make 6 figures. Then they reach 6 figures, and suddenly it doesn't feel impressive anymore. Now they want more, then more again. This is the psychological treadmill most people never escape. They keep running financially, but emotionally stay in the same place. And social media accelerates this endlessly. There is always someone richer, someone younger, someone more successful, which means comparison never ends. That's why many wealthy people still feel poor psychologically. Because wealth is partly objective, but also emotional. If your spending grows with every income increase and your expectations grow with every lifestyle upgrade, you never feel ahead, no matter how much money you make. So how do you escape this trap? Ironically, the answer is not avoiding enjoyment completely. Money should improve your life. The problem is unconscious upgrading. Most people spend automatically. They upgrade because everyone around them upgrades, not because those things genuinely improve happiness long term. The key is intentional lifestyle design. Instead of asking, what can I afford? Ask, what actually adds value to my life? Those are very different questions. Because some upgrades truly matter. Maybe living closer to family improves your happiness enormously. Maybe healthier food improves your energy. Maybe experiences matter more to you than luxury products. But many purchases are simply emotional reactions. Status purchases, stress purchases, boredom purchases. And those rarely create lasting fulfillment. One of the smartest financial habits is learning to delay lifestyle upgrades. When your income rises, don't immediately expand your expenses. Pause. Give yourself time to adapt first. Because every fixed expense you add today becomes pressure tomorrow. Instead of upgrading your entire life after every raise, try splitting the difference. Enjoy some of the increase, but invest the rest. That's how income eventually turns into wealth instead of endless consumption. Because wealth is not built by looking rich. It's built by owning things that pay you back. Investments, businesses, assets. The people who achieve financial freedom usually master one simple skill. They keep their lifestyle below their income even when they no longer have to. And yes, that sounds boring. But boring is often what creates wealth. Most financially successful people are not constantly chasing upgrades. They're quietly building ownership. And ownership changes everything. Because eventually your investments start working harder than you do. That's when money stops being stressful. That's when you gain flexibility. That's when you stop needing every paycheck. And, ironically, that's usually when people feel richest. Not when they buy more things, but when they need less. At the end of the day, lifestyle inflation is dangerous because it disguises itself as progress. You think you're moving forward because your lifestyle looks better. But sometimes your financial position hasn't improved at all. You just upgraded your expenses. And if every raise disappears into a more expensive life, you stay trapped in the same cycle forever. So the next time your income increases, remember this: more money only changes your future if you keep part of it. Because real wealth is not about how expensive your lifestyle looks. It's about how much freedom your money gives you. And the people who understand that escape the trap everyone else mistakes for success.